Gay Association. And tonight we are planning a talk looking to the day tomorrow, which is the day where we commemorate and where we celebrate at the same time the International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia. It is a particular day. On the 17th of May of 1990, the World Health Organization has taken off from the list of the mental health homosexuality. And since then, we are celebrating this particular day as a big victory towards equality and acceptance. At the same time, it is also a day where we look in our country here in Germany, but also to Europe and to other parts of the world, where our community is suffering discrimination and suffering also political represalience. So we are now here to realize and see what happens and what can be done in particular areas of legislations and of the community. And here in Europe, we have been facing over the last couple of years a literal rollback. If we look at the West Balkan countries, if we look at Hungary, if we look at Poland, we realize that the situation has changed quite a bit. And even in other parts of Europe, we realize that there are movements, political movements, and society is also at some point trying to stop our way and our road to acceptance and equality. If we look at Italy at the moment, they are really debating hard to implement a law that allows the legislators to prosecute homophobia and transphobia. And if we look at Poland, we know that the situation there has been extremely difficult for the whole of the community. We have been speaking about last year at our IDA Hobbit, and we will be talking again today. And today I've got two very special guests here with us who are basically representing the association Love Does Not Exclude and a particular project within the association, which is Law Does Not Exclude. And I'm very happy to welcome Milena Adamczewska-Stachura and Jakub Urbanik. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi. Now,
good evening. Hi.
I'm very happy to be able to speak to you tonight because we had already a chat during the last week, and since then, your project hasn't really left my brain. I've been thinking and thinking again. What can be done? And then I realized that it's sometimes so easy, even though it might be difficult, but it seems so easy to help. What is your project Law Does Not Exclude particularly do, Milena?
So simply speaking, our project is about providing legal support for LGBTI community in Poland. And this is to give a little bit background around it. Now in Poland, considering the whole situation of homophobic and transphobic campaign and rhetoric run also by the government, there is absolutely no political will to implement any needed legislative changes. And in that situation, the protection that can be granted in courts is more and more important. So LGBTI community is also more and more aware of the fact that they have rights, that everyone has equal rights, and that courts are places where this protection can be granted. So firstly, what we do is we put in touch LGBTI community members with lawyers who specialize in providing legal support for LGBTI community. And second of all, we provide financial support for this legal assistance. Okay. So, of course, we can't do that to everyone, although we would like to, but our main, I would say, criterion is also the financial situation of the person who applies for funding. Okay. We want to support, firstly, most vulnerable members who can't afford to seek protection on their own.
Jakub, your organization has been already active for the last 9 years, right? What challenges have you guys faced with Love Does Not Exclude over the last couple of years?
It's been, I mean, the organization with which I am affiliated, but I'm not officially a member, but I'm doing this project of Law Does Not Exclude together with Milena, has been founded in order to secure, guarantee, and introduce marriage equality in Poland. So that's nothing else but marriage, marriage for everyone. So basically that was the main goal, and still the main goal, and still remain the main goal for a couple of years more, I'm afraid. Obviously, the change is not done otherwise than through education. So Love Does Not Exclude has been very active on educational grounds, offering workshops and schooling also on the level of schools, non-government organizations. It has been extremely important agent behind the Warsaw LGBTQ Equality Declaration signed by the mayor of Warsaw, Rafał Trzaskowski, 2 years ago, which actually sadly also marks the beginning of the homophobic campaign in Poland. And apart from that, I'd say again, education, education, and education. So trying to go through with the message that marriage's law is for everyone, that we are not worse or anything, we are just equal.
Milena, last year when we had a chat with activists from Poland, they were basically highlighting the fact that, if I remember correctly, that society in Poland is kind of split in half. But when it comes to acceptance of LGBTI, of the queer community, but when it comes to looking at if we're making any progress, if you're winning any ground, then they were basically saying last year that little by little, we are realizing we're basically getting into getting more accepted by the people. So the numbers of allies apparently is growing. Can you as association confirm that?
Yes, this is actually what data confirms, that, for example, support for marriage equality is on a rise. It's a slow rise, but it is on a rise. It actually can be seen also as one of the results, I guess, of the homophobic campaign, surprisingly. But what the homophobic campaign is causing in Poland is simply polarization of opinions. And of course, there are the ones who are triggered by the campaign and who respond to it by, in the worst scenario, committing hate crimes. In a little bit better scenario, spreading hate speech against the LGBTI community on the internet. But this is just one group, right? And there is the other group who responds to the same campaign with support and with solidarity with the community. And this is why we can say that also the number of allies is growing, I guess. The problem is that, and sorry for bringing like again something sad to the answer, which was a little bit optimistic, is that I think that this small group is actually causing more harm that we can imagine. Because while data is showing that support for marriage equality might be on the rise, data is also showing that Poland is now one of the most homophobic countries. And the survey conducted by Fundamental Rights Agency of EU last year also shows that 50% of people in Poland are afraid of holding hands with their same-sex partner, or that 35% of people were victims of hate crimes or hate speech only in 12 months before the survey was conducted. So even though this group, which is responding to the homophobic campaign with supporting it in a sense, is actually causing more and more harm to the community and also to allies of the community sometimes.
Jakub, you mentioned that the organization started its work to achieve marriage equality. But when I think about the situation where we are at the moment in Poland, at least seen from abroad, then marriage equality seems a project that is so far away. How do you see it? Is it actually closer than we might imagine?
So I think Milena probably should correct me if I'm wrong, but I think 4 years ago, law does not exclude did a prediction, and the prediction estimated the introduction of egalitarian marriage in Poland within the next 8 years, thinking that our then populist government would win the elections, which indeed they have. And that it could only be possible within the next political change. Nowadays, it's not very clear because the political scene in Poland has been extremely divided. Yes, it is true that the left wing and kind of central right wing parties have started speaking about the equality, not even marriage, but partnership law. Yet the central right parties, which are the main opposition force right now in Poland, they do not have it on the big agenda, I'd say. It's only the left who does that, and the left is unfortunately quite limited still in Poland. So the goal is very, very far. The politicians, I think, are quite afraid of bringing up any themes connected to the LGBTQI equality. And the latest example of the latest 3 political campaigns that have happened in this country, so the European elections in 2019, then the presidential elections, and then, the parliamentary elections in 2019, and the presidential elections in 2020, where the homo, bi, and transphobic arguments were used to gain political support. Unfortunately, as it seems, with the success, shows that the topic will, for quite some time, be omitted by kind of very carefully thinking politicians. So that's an issue, that's a problem. As far as I know, at least for the parliamentary elections, where we are speaking about autumn 2019, the fact that the Polish TV 3 days short of the elections broadcast a film, an absolutely terrible mockumentary, I would call it, not even a documentary, called Invasion, how the LGBTQ ideology invades Poland. It probably gained them, the governmental party, about 1.5% of the votes that have been of the estimates. So even if it's, as Milena has said it, even it's a very little gain, if it's a very little group that actually takes the hook and follows that, this is enough to change the power balances. So I see this way still very long. If I may now say something positive, contrary to Milena, who finished her previous statement in quite a negative tone, I'd say that also because of the hardship, people get more aware, people from the community get more aware of their rights, and we simply don't let it go anymore. So that's the good part.
So that's a good a good hint for me for not letting go, which means that now the community, even through your help of your project, Law Does Not Exclude, is basically getting the confidence and an ally in your organization who basically will support them when they take cases to court. Now, law in favor of human rights seen by the rainbow glasses has been absent for quite a long time now in Poland. And I think that even lawyers are not really as open-minded as one would think. So what has been the challenge of this project? How did you get to find, and how did you get to coach, possibly maybe also, lawyers in order for them to be fit enough to then take over such cases? Milena.
So I think that it was actually a process, and it's difficult to like specifically mark a starting point. So maybe also Jakub can jump in later and say a little bit more, because he actually was more a funder of the project as I was, as I joined when already some things were initiated. But I believe that it's also a big network of LGBTI organizations and civil society and NGOs and lawyers who support the community, and that this network actually has been always collaborating together to some extent. So
may I
it was
ask how big this network of lawyers is that you have now, or are you not allowed to talk about it?
No, it's absolutely fine to talk about. It's more that it's not one fixed number, because we, let's say, yeah, we don't have like a group, you know, where people are counted one after the other. But I would say that it's around 20 lawyers that we know who are, let's say, experienced to some extent in working on these cases. Of course, not everyone on every case. And this is also an idea behind our project, that we connect people who are seeking legal support with lawyers who are specializing in exactly kind of cases as they have, because it can be criminal law when it comes to hate crimes, or it can be administrative law when it comes to any cases related to, let's say, registering of foreign birth certificate of a child of same-sex parents.
Does Poland have a hate crime legislation of some sort, or not at all?
Well, not at all. And but I always have to put this but. It's not that committing like every crime is against LGBTIQ person is not penalized. So we don't have hate crimes as such, which say that a crime committed due to the prejudice towards someone's sexual orientation or gender identity, that they have certain specific nature of hate crimes. And this is how hate crimes are usually defined in other criminal codes abroad, or how is it also defined on international level. But we have, of course, like in penal codes, crimes of, yeah, let's say, beating someone, right? And therefore, like these crimes can be used also to protect LGBTIQ community. But this is why it is so difficult, and why someone needs to be specializing in these kind of cases to know how to use existing legislation, which clearly has gaps, to still provide protection. And also even to take it one step more and to actually try to fill in these existing gaps with something which is called strategic litigation. And strategic litigation is a case where actually on the basis of existing provisions, we try to provide certain support and to step by step slowly take it further. So to make a situation where court rulings fill in the gaps which exist in the legislation.
Okay, now let me try to break it down for our community that is watching at the moment and maybe is having possibly difficulty to really understand. What we have is we have a situation where the queer community, the LGBTI community, is been confronted with homophobic political situations where also courts are playing in and don't rule following what we would think the right for everyone to be equal, but they rule in different ways. And not in favor of LGBTI human rights, as we would call them. Now, you basically decided to, you realize that there is a big gap in legislative support, because there aren't that many lawyers that are willing or are able to confront such cases. And you decided to set up a group of lawyers that would be able to take such cases on. And you have started to collect money in order to support those people that need the legal support but are not able to fund for it. So that's now the starting point that we have. How has this, Jakub, been perceived, this new offer on the LGBTI market that you have provided by the community when you started your work?
I mean, let me reiterate something that Milena has said. It's not that we do something completely new. Things have been happening before. Lawyers were extremely supportive, and also we started calling it our Stonewall, the night between the 7th and the 8th of August, where 40 odd demonstrators, peaceful demonstrators, were detained at the university gate. Who are protesting against the arrest of the activist Margot. Also triggered a lot of support from lawyers who had not thought of helping the community before. So I, for instance, got a text message from my former student asking me to put her in touch with somebody coordinating the help to the detainees, so she could join them. And she is still a trainee lawyer. I mean, way on her advancing her career. So a lot of things like that happened. What we wanted to do was to kind of use that force and also do not be completely dependent on the goodwill and pro bono work of experts. We think that law is an important agent of creating social relations, and it's an important tool that needs to be used, but it also needs to be used by professionals. And we cannot afford that there's very few lawyers, because they are very specialized cases, would always be doing that work without any fee. So we simply think that it's good that these lawyers, just like, good plumbers, good mechanics, good teachers, whatever, that they are called for a good job for the community as well. So that was the idea. And what was the response? Well, at first, even among ourselves, we were very skeptical. One of the key figures within our, I would say, pack of lawyers said that she would not imagine it being successful, that it would be way too much work. But then little by little, we actually got convinced that it will possibly produce a kind of snowball effect. It will attract more and more people. Now that first skeptical friend has got a young lawyer trainee who only wants to specialize in LGBTQ cases, and it'll make this community of allies or legal allies bigger and bigger, eventually actually changing the society, because at the end of the day, there won't be, this is our game, this is our aim, this is our game. We don't want to have anything special for LGBTQ community. We just want to be equal. We don't want to have specific cases. We just want to have diversity, equality cases, which go the same for straight and not straight, a part of the community, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Now,
if I may jump in with one thing, because actually, like speaking about response of the community, I can mention that since last week, my absolutely favorite thing to do at work is to call people who actually received funding and support from our community. So to call them and to tell them that, yes, we granted you support. Because really the response that I hear, like on the other side on the phone, is something that gives me motivation for, like, I think the whole next week of work. So already like calling 5 people last week, like I should be powered up for next month. And really like the response is, of course, I guess, amazing. And people are thankful because, yes, what I've mentioned before, like as we want to support people who usually can't afford this legal help themselves, this is really like making a big difference for them.
Now, what I would like, it's great to hear that people feel this sense of relief knowing that they have some sort of legal support that is promising to help them through their particular situations that they are facing at the moment. If I got that correct, is that what you are basically looking for is to get challenging cases where you know they are not going to receive what we are looking for in the first instances, and then to basically go through the various court levels, reaching then to a, let's call it constitutional court, or maybe even then going even further to on a European court level. Is that what you're basically looking for those very particular cases you're looking for, right?
Yes, I would say that this is like the second goal.
That's the second goal.
Yes.
But the first goal at the moment, since the cases that you have just the court case, I've just received a message that I'm going to tell you later. The court cases that you have got at the moment are court cases. Most of them, if I remember, most of them are regarding trans issues. And in regards to the trans issues, I also would like to talk to you about the very particular, this very particular law or procedure, which is something completely new. I was chatting with a friend the other night, and she's a very well-read and very well-connected lesbian activist here in Berlin. And I was telling her about our talk tonight, and I was telling her about your project, and I was very excited about what you guys do. And I was telling her about the cases that you were telling me. And then I told her, which shocked her because she didn't know, that in Poland, in order as a trans person to go through legal procedure, you have to sue your own parents. That's a concept that we here didn't really, at least not in a mainstream way, really knew. Would you both like to talk about it? How does that work? Why is that the case? And what does it do with the people going already through the ordeal of going through court cases and then also having to sue their parents?
Okay, so I can start, but to be honest, I don't know where to start, also to not make it like maybe too legal. But so firstly, I will say that yes, indeed, this is like a procedure which violates fundamental human rights. But on the other hand, this is the only procedure that trans person in Poland can now undertake to change gender market in their documents. And this is simply because, again, there is like a huge legal gap in our legislation, and there are no provisions regulating legal gender recognition in other human rights friendly way. So due to this legal gap, around the beginning of 1990s, Supreme Court has developed this concept, this idea that gender identity can be something that we can seek protection for in court, in the civil procedure. So that was exactly the idea of strategic litigation, which I've been describing before, right? So there are no legal provisions, but then the court, in this case, the Supreme Court, develops an idea that you can actually seek protection of your gender identity. By protection, I mean to have it defined, because there is like a way in Poland to actually have every right you have it defined and confirmed by court. And then the problem is that as this is a civil procedure, which needs to have two sides of it, there is basically someone that you have to sue in this procedure. So the concept, again, developed in this in judgments of Supreme Court was that the only idea that they had basically is that you have to sue your parents in that case. And this gave grants for something which now for over 30 years has been the only way of changing legal gender market in Poland. And although there were a lot of attempts to actually adopt legislation which would fill in this gap in better human rights friendly way, and even one act on that has been actually adopted by the parliament. But then current president Andrzej Duda, as one of his first decision in the office in 2015, decided to veto this legal act. So since then, again, we are stuck with the procedure of suing one's parents. And the only thing that we can do as lawyers supporting the community is to actually try to make this procedure as human rights friendly as possible, right? So like there are certain ways during the procedure how to make it shorter, for example, or how to make it less violative towards one's privacy. So these are the only things that we can still do. But before the proper legislation is adopted, this is still what we are stuck with.
Jakub, what does it do with each trans individual that has to basically, on a psychological level, what does it do when you have to sue your parents? I mean, maybe, in one person's idea, maybe you think, okay, you are in a transition and you have had your coming out as trans, and in a particular view, maybe viewers might think, well, your parents won't be happy with it, so it's easier to sue your parents. But sometimes you have parents that are very accepting and loving and accept you the way you are, and then you still have to sue them. What does that do with each individual?
I mean, one full disclosure, I'm not a practicing lawyer. I teach history of law, and I've never represented in such a case. I've just got friends who have gone through such a procedure, and even with supporting families, it's a traumatic experience. Namely, because a trial is meant to be traumatic for you. It's all about the theater of justice. You are put against the state authority. There is the symbolic violence of the judge over you, perfectly normally placed above you. Then you are facing your opponent, and that's your supportive parents even, and you have to, be against them, and they have to be against yourself. So a friend of mine whose sister had gone through that kind of procedure with all their supporting family said that they all had been shattered afterwards. Yeah. Another aspect of all that is that this is a civil procedure, and so both parties have equal access to evidence. And among that evidence, our courts nonsensely, without any reason, often ask for very detailed psychological expertise, which is extremely intimate. So mind you, for instance, about your masturbation practices. And even with my supporting parents, I'm not quite sure if I really wanted to know what I mean, leaving aside the fact that it has nothing to do, because it seems as if these judges had not realized that transgender person can be homo, bi, or pansexual at the same time. So there's a lot of lack of knowledge. Again, supporting these people, supporting transgender people with professional help educates the judges, educates, but also raises awareness in the community. This is something that you've mentioned very briefly, but I want to reiterate it. You are normal people here, inverted commas, are afraid of lawyers. We are the ugly guys, and girls. We normally dare to gain something. We are there to litigate. People are afraid of law. So our initiative's aim is also to make law friendly, to make them understand that law is there not to complicate matters, but actually to make them smoother and simpler. But of course, because we are professionals, we have a certain kind of education that has prepared us for making things smoother and friendlier. We can do it. And this is what we have been observing. For instance, this news about our help has spread through web pages, support groups of transgender people. And now we hope that it will also bring a certain degree of expertise even to non-professionals, what you actually need to do, that you don't need to go through all that cumbersome procedure, that you only need to do the minimum. Luckily, not always there's the case. Again, this friend of ours and her legal trainee, one of the most moving things that they've told me about last 2 weeks was a small regional court in a provincial town in Poland, a very quick procedure, and the justice who with all her might wanted to be as helpful as possible. And at the end of the procedure, when everything had been done, she was still like, what still can I do for you? Can I, and it lasted like for half an hour. Unfortunately, this is rather a good example that is not necessarily shared by many, but in general, we hope to change that.
Since we have already passed the first half an hour, allow me to just throw in a line or two in German to welcome those who are watching now, and I've just popped up on Facebook and don't know what we're talking about. So I tell them what the topic is about. And I'm also going to invite everyone, and I'm doing it directly in English, in case you're following and watching and you have questions, please place your questions in the commentary fields so that we have an opportunity to give you the answers and provide you with the answers you're looking for. Liebe Freundinnen und Freunde, herzlich willkommen zu diesem Vorabend zum Internationalen Tag gegen Homo, Trans, Bi und Interphobie, welches wir morgen begehen werden. Heute unterhalten wir uns hier gemeinsam mit polnischen Aktivistinnen eines Projektes, das sich einer Organisation, die sich vor 9 Jahren ja zusammengetan hat, die auf Englisch heißt, übersetzt, Love does not exclude, Liebe schließt nicht aus, heißt es übersetzt. Und sie haben ein Projekt, und in diesem Projekt kümmern sie sich auf legalem Wege um Menschen, die Unterstützung brauchen vor Gericht. Und dieses Projekt heißt Law Does Not Exclude, nämlich Gesetze schließen niemanden aus. Diese Organisation und dieses Projekt sind im Moment sehr stark in Polen dabei, sich zu stärken, um die Community wiederum vor Gericht ihnen den Rücken zu stärken und bestimmte Fälle so weit wie möglich durch die Gerichte zu bringen. Und darüber reden wir heute Abend. Falls Sie Fragen haben, falls ihr Fragen habt, dann könnt ihr diese gerne bei uns in den Kommentarspalten rein platzieren. Wir kriegen diese mit und ich werde diese Fragen dann für euch stellen. Und wir werden auch gleich noch einen Link dann online stellen, bei dem ihr dann alle vielleicht, wenn ihr Lust dazu habt, auch Geld spenden könnt für dieses Projekt. Es ist ziemlich einfach. Wir haben ja eine deutsche Seite dafür und dann könntet ihr auch gerne Geld überweisen, wenn ihr denn tatsächlich dann helfen wollt. So, das war's schon mal von mir. Wir gehen jetzt zurück wieder ins Englische. We are going to speak English back again. Well, thank you for allowing me to have this very short interval in German. And I know that Jakub speaks German, so he has understood, and I hope that I've translated everything correctly. So, let's talk about money. This job can't be done without money. Where is this money coming from? Because it's obviously not coming from the Polish government. So Milena, where are you collecting the money, Milena?
Well, I think that is actually a question more to Kuba, because to be fair, he's really doing amazing job doing fundraising for our community. So I'll let him say, how do you do that, Kuba?
Okay, Kuba, then let us hear it. How do you do it?
So the first problematic thing, again, those of our viewers who have anything to do with law, you know that it's very difficult to establish fees for lawyers. So one of the things which we had to do to a certain extent was to impose or to think out an average reasonable fee for a lawyer's job in Poland. It's definitely less than in Germany or German-speaking countries, but it's still probably a little bit more than what a teacher would earn per 1 hour of his or her work. How do we get the money? So once the project had been started, I contacted a number of friends in the international community, because of course the happenings in Poland in the last 2 years had risen awareness of the hardship of the community in Poland. So they had been asking as well, and I would come up with the answer, look, we have this project. And so far we've received a number of grants. One probably we need to mention, since the venue is such, is the spendings, the donations that have already been coming from the Lesben Verband in Deutschland. We also got a very a donation from the Swiss organization Network, and these were, I think, two most important ones, and then a number of contributions from private individuals. So we basically advertised money raising initiative on our Facebooks, and we quite surprisingly got a nice amount of money as well. So at present, we've collected enough money to secure at least these cases that we have undertaken. For a moment, we had about 15,000 euros on our account. Now, since we've already decided to finance 5 cases, half of this money is gone, which is a great news, but that basically means that we still
what 7,000, 8,000 euros on the account or something, or what?
Yeah, we still haven't paid the lawyers that would undertake, so they are gone in the sense that they've been secured to pay for these legal gender recognition cases. The good thing about the legal gender recognition cases is that they are fairly easy, and normally they end in the first instance, so they are not too expensive either. But our initial project was also to provide defense in criminal law cases. There is a number of criminal accusations of LGBTQI activists. We wanted also to protect, to grant help within labor law and civil law, especially breach of personal rights. But many more cases could come up, and these potentially could be much more costly and much more time spending. So this amount that we now have is still there for the cases that we have, but now, since the news has spread, we also hope to be getting more requests for funding.
Which also means that then you will need more money.
Yes, which also means that we'll also.
So I can make an appeal to our viewers or gay community watching from all over. We are going to place in our comments a link where you can easily donate money to the project Law Does Not Exclude. This money will go into law cases where we will help and support the members of our community who are facing legal challenges in Poland, and we might help and support going with cases a long way, where we basically will force through the courts the legislators to change their laws in Poland. This is a very strong and powerful project that needs the support. And while I was chatting with you, I had a message popping up on my screen, on my WhatsApp, and our friend from the Lesben- and Schwulenverband, Klaus Jetz, who is also our general director, has basically wrote me that I can announce that the Hirschfeld-Eddy Association and Foundation will grant you 5,000 euros more. So add to this, whatever is left on the account, another 5,000 euros on top, because we think that this project needs to be supported. And we really hope that the word will be spreading more so that more cases will come your way. But that's just on a quick note, because I didn't really know. Yeah, I really didn't know. So it made me very happy. But anyway, we don't want to talk about the LSBD today. We want to talk about you. So let's talk about the cases. We've got 5 or 6 cases, I think, at the moment that you're taking care of. Mostly of them, please correct me, are trans-related issues. Have you already had any cases that have been closed successfully? And if yes, can we talk about them?
No, unfortunately not yet, but this is only due to the timing that we've actually started our initiative in December, but only in terms of fundraising and to collecting funds to actually be able to initiate any case. And now we've been collecting applications only since March this year. So actually, like only last week, our council, because we also have like a body of experts which decides on granting funding, decided to grant funding for this first 5 cases. So
we have 5 cases that you took on at the moment.
Yes.
Okay. And can we talk? Is it allowed to speak about these legal cases? What are the topics of it? What are the cases? Is there any particularity in there? Any big challenge that you see?
Well, basically all of them relate to legal gender recognition. So we've discussed this already, I think, but there are also cases which we know that might come soon, so that the applications might come soon, because we've already heard from the community members that they are planning to apply. which are related to criminal law matters and to hate speech against the community member. So this is like another problem which we've mentioned already, that there are no laws which protect the community from hate speech. But on the other hand, let's say lawyers who practice that a lot and who know how to do it can, of course, use existing legislation to still seek some protection. So we are hoping to receive this application soon. Perfect.
Jakub, I'd like to know, since you are the man who's collecting the money, are you actually also working together with ILGA or any other association, ILGA Europe, for example? Do you have any sort of cooperation at the moment, or how does that look like?
As far as I know, Love Doesn't Exclude itself has got links to ILGA, and of course there is the network of LGBTQ organization on the European level, or that has been supporting it itself, but we haven't. I mean, and they have. I think they have been planning also to apply for grants in Love Doesn't Exclude on our behalf at various pan-European organizations for that matter. So this is something that's the. Let me explain one thing, because the legal fund is a project run within Love Doesn't Exclude organization, which you have mentioned so many times. We've done it, as I've told you, I'm not a member of the organization, but we've done it because since it's a well-established NGO devoted to non-discrimination of the LGBTQ community in Poland, we get from them all the organizational support. So they cover up administrative costs, they cover up things like accounting, they cover up also external communication with other organizations. So ILGA is, and we've discussed that they will be applying for funding on our behalf as well to other non-governmental sources of funding, like for instance the support funds by the EFTA countries and so on so forth. And that's again something that we've been doing, trying to work out a little bit with the diplomatic community in Poland, addressing a number of the representatives of the countries that have got money ready to invest in such civic initiatives.
One question that has just come in is, it's in German, I'm going to try to translate it quickly. It's basically asking, why does or do you guys have any Polish lawyer who is basically going to sue the two courts for marriage equality? Why is there no legal procedure to basically force the government to implement marriage equality? Because as it says here, even if you would lose every case in front of the Polish courts, ending up then at the European High Court of Justice, then chances would be very high that there would be some sort of legal success. You're both nodding your head, so what can you tell me about that? Milena.
So I will make a short introduction, and then again I'll let Jakub speak, as he's personally involved, I would say. Yes, there were 11 cases communicated by the European Court of Human Rights to Polish government in June 2020, which are all related to marriage equality. So we are there actually yet, and there has been like a coalition of lawyers going through this whole process in Poland and now litigating in Strasbourg. But Jakub, you can tell a little bit more from your own experience.
So Jakub, where do we stand? Thank you, Milena. Where do we stand there now, having all these cases? And you're personally involved, which I didn't know. So let's talk also about that.
Yeah, there is. I think again, I'll try to find a silver lining in everything. So I think this is a bit of the positive effect of the homophobic agenda of the government. The court has awakened itself a little bit, because some of these cases had been lying in Strasbourg for over 8 years. My own case was first petition, I think 4.5 years ago. The nature of the cases is always the same. They all focus on trying to get at least some way of recognizing same-sex partnerships in Poland, but the attempts have been different. I would say the smallest step is actually one of the cases that I'm involved in, and this is basically my partner is Spanish, and I was trying to get married in Spain, but in order to marry in a foreign jurisdiction, you normally need a certificate of marriageability. AFH-Zeugnis. So I've been denied that.
That's impressive that you know how to say that in German.
I am a professor of history of law, so I know.
I know, but still,
No, just jokes apart. So anyhow, so I've been denied that certificate because the Warsaw registrar had said that if I should marry in Spain, that would actually breach the Polish constitution, which apparently protects heterosexual marriage. So this is the smallest step, I'd say. There are cases which try to repeat the famous case of Oliari and others, and Italy. So basically Polish nationals trying to get married within Poland. They've been denied that, and it's also communicated to the Polish government. Finally, there are cases of the Polish nationals who have been married abroad, and they want to have their marriage transcribed in the Polish system, or at least some aspect of that marriage recognized. For instance, to be recognized as legal spouses in order to get taxes exemption or health insurance with one another. So all of these cases go more or less in the same aim, just taking different paths. And as our viewer has rightly observed, we hope that the chances to win are actually quite big, given the recent jurisdiction of the Court of Human Rights in that respect. So we hope that at least something like Oliari would happen for Poland. So some kind of legal duty of Poland to introduce at least Oliari, as you know, only made it vital for Italy to introduce some kind of legal recognition. It doesn't have to be yet marriage. So we will see. We are waiting. We are dating now for the roles, because we've in all these cases they've been communicated. The governments have produced their arguments. I wouldn't say that they are very convincing, at least in the case that I know, so my personal case. We've produced replies, and now it's up to the court when they will put the cases on the roll.
Now, one question, which I think many of us don't know, because we are never really involved with the European Court of Justice. If such a ruling would happen, and they would say, I don't know, person X and person Z need to be granted marriage as, let's say, two gay men or two lesbian women, or would be granted marriage equality. Is the government forced? Do they have to then do it? Or can they still say, well, the European Court of Justice can say whatever they want to, but we decide for ourselves what to do? That's the one question I have. And the other one is that then going to be a precedent where they then have to change a particular law because otherwise they will be sued continuously? Or what's the procedure in there? Now, I don't know if Milena is able to, I start with you, Milena, because I know that you're involved as well.
Yes, sure. So, well, as always in law, the answer is yes, but, and I would say that yes, yes, the state then is obliged to change legislation, and this, for example, happened in Italy after the case that Jakub mentioned. So Oliari and others, Italy introduced civil partnerships of same-sex couples. but here comes the worst part. Of course, there are limited ways, I would say, of enforcing this judgment, right? And there are several judgments against Poland, mostly, for example, in the cases regarding right to abortion, which hasn't been implemented for years. So here comes, yes, I would say not clear and straightforward answer, but we'll see what happens, I guess.
But it's important to mention it because very often we hear, success in front of the High Court of European Court of Justice, and then we think, okay, that box has now been ticked, that problem has now been solved, and actually, very often it's quite hard. Jakub, what would you like to add to that?
One thing, if I may put it straight, the cases are pending at the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg, so Conseil d'Europe or Council of Europe, and not the Luxembourg Court, the Court of Justice of the European Union.
Yeah.
With the Court of Justice with the European Union, the case is really difficult. I mean, there is only one case, Conan and others, Conan and Romania. But it was a very particular case which actually involved the right to settle down of the partner, spouse of a Romanian national.
Yeah.
In our cases, it's really difficult to find that European law element. So that's why we went to the Court of Human Rights, claiming that our right to privacy, our right to marriage had been that are due to us under the Convention of European Convention of Human Rights have been violated, have been breached. As Milena has said, Poland is one case, but there is this one wonderful member of Conseil d'Europe, which is Russia. They've been losing cases all the time.
Yeah.
They are paying. They pay the damages and they do nothing.
Yeah.
Another aspect of that, and I don't really want to enter that because it's a subject for another long week.
Yes, I know.
Is the general constitutional problem with the constitutional crisis in Poland, constitutional crisis concerning the courts or the reform of the court system that was introduced by the government already the first mandate. We have had judgments of the Court of Justice of the European Union. We have now had, just last Friday, a judgment of the Court of Human Rights, basically showing that these reforms have produced illegal void effects, or they produced no effect, so that they are void. And as it seems, our government is not going to do anything about it. So this is, what about the enforcement of the possible judgment? With that government, there are even more troubles with that because the government anyhow has aimed at destruction of the system of the Polish courts. Silver lining in all that, the judges have realized that it could also be endangered species, an endangered minority. So maybe they have a little bit more sympathy for LGBTQ community. And actually, in one of the cases, for the first time, one of our courts have posed a preliminary referral to the Court of Justice in one case involving same-sex parenthood. So I would say, again, forcing the situation a little bit to be more optimistic than maybe I should, is that the judges, their awareness has been awakened as well. So maybe it will bring to the judgments within our country that we really want and need.
Now, another question that I'd like to ask, because it just popped up, is what can we all do? One thing is we can donate money, for example, to an organization like yours, to a project like yours. I'm again asking everyone, we have already placed the link to the page where you can make a donation towards Law Does Not Exclude on our comment field on Facebook. But what can, for example, the German government do? Is there any help that, what can other countries, like, for example, the German government do?
Well, I would say that I think that political pressure and certain naming and shaming of Poland for what's happening is still really needed. Like looking at, for example, discussions going on the level of European Union. Of course, the EU is trying to react in certain way, but on the other hand, very often it's just promising to react in certain way or saying things and not really doing things.
Yeah.
And there's definitely still way more to be done. And what we need to realize, what other governments need to realize, including probably German government as well, is that these issues are as important as any, I would say, economic issues, right, that are discussed as usually the highest priority. And looking even like at our response to the current COVID crisis at the EU level, it clearly shows that we as the EU, as let's say European countries, as like even globally all states, we are able to react to crisis, right? We are able to find solutions somehow and to help the community. And then I think that the countries still need to take this way of acting and responding to emergency and apply this way of emergency to what's happening to LGBTI community in Poland and in other states as well, and to the rule of law, because we can like discuss also other topics around this crisis going on in Poland. So using these tools that we've developed in response to crisis, to the crisis of human rights and the rule of law, I would say that this is the answer.
Jakub, so that means that at the end of the day, we need to work hard and fight a lot and convince allies and convince people that at the end of the day, the only thing that is really going to bring some sort of solution is basically a new government or new parliamentary situation that basically is going to change the way that Poland is going at the moment?
The hope for the political change in Poland, yeah, it's kind of a misty, and I wouldn't really want to enter the local politics, not to get just depressed anymore, and not to get our viewers more depressed than necessary. But yes, I could only reiterate what Milena has said. We need to have allies, we need to have friends who would go to the local parliamentarians, who would go to the local town councillors, and they will tell them, look, there is a problem with our friends in Poland. Of course, don't break vases, don't break plates, but just be constant, don't break ties, or if there are ties, try to reach out to the local LGBTQ communities or other communities that would need support on the non-governmental level and not the even local government level. But just talk to them and remind them that one day they will need your vote, and that vote will depend also on the proactive guarding the rule of law in Poland. And that rule of law involves equal rights for LGBT community on equal standing as with everyone else. So like, I don't know, two examples that have come to my mind that also attracted foreign press. We had this visit of the French Europe Minister Clément Beaune, and then previously also by the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Italy, Ivano Scalfarotto. And they are both gay, and they've come to Poland, of course, on political agenda, but they've also very strongly expressed their concern about the situation in Poland, and the Polish parties simply had to face it and do something about it. And you could see that they were embarrassed. So maybe if you embarrass them long enough, they will finally cease doing nasty things.
Now, you were saying, speaking to the local politicians or writing them a letter or an email, for example, to the members of the Deutsche Bundestag, does it, in your opinion, really help? Jakub?
I don't know, but if you don't do it, then it will definitely not help. So do it, and then see if it doesn't help. Get a response, get a nice response back. Well, I've been looking into that, and if not, send another letter. It's this gospel rule: knock until they open, not because they love you, but because they're just bothered by your knocking.
Listen, we were talking about putting pressure. Now, last year, when we had our talk to the International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia, I was also talking to activists from Poland. And at that time, we were discussing what should we do with our city partnerships, with our twin cities. What are we going to do with them? Are we going to keep them alive? Are we going to suspend them? Are we going to threaten? Are we going to cancel them? Because you have over 100 cities and in Poland that have declared themselves as so-called LGBTI-free zones. At that time, we came to the conclusion that canceling, it's the wrong strategy because it needs the dialogue, it still needs the contact, it needs the tie. But looking a year later, we have realized that those 100 cities have remained 100 cities, so no more cities have added to the 100. And if we look closely, 4 or 5 of those cities have basically reversed their verdict of declaring themselves LGBTI-free zones. Milena, what can you tell us about it? And would you say that threatening and canceling at the end of the day has been a good strategy?
So there are, of course, different angles at looking at that. And I absolutely hear and understand and respect also the views of usually civil society, which also raised concerns that indeed canceling partnerships can cause more harm to the community than actually bring any results. But having said that, my personal opinion is that it actually made sense and that it had good results, because from this 4 cities that actually withdrew declarations, I've checked that one of them did it because of Irish town of Fennoy cancelling the twinning agreement, and that was the Polish city of Nowa Dęba. So that was like a clear, direct link between one event and then the other, right? So the cancellation happened, and then the Polish town withdrew the declaration. And now, very lately, another Polish city of Kraśnik withdrew the declaration after like the long fight of the community in this town to do it. And here it wasn't exactly linked to the cancellation of any twinning partnership, but because of the risk of losing Norwegian funds. So it was more about grants and money, but again, like clear pressure from abroad and a clear risk of losing something, which actually resulted with the declaration being withdrawn. So I think that these examples and also what you've mentioned, that the whole process actually stopped, and that now the number, if something is going on with it, is that it's dropping due to, for example, court rulings of cancelling the declaration or this ways of withdrawing themselves by the towns. I think that all of that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for international pressure. So for cancellation of twinning agreements, for EU pressuring in center way, and also not granting money in one of the projects to towns which declared themselves as LGBT-free zones, and finally the risk of losing Norwegian funds. So that also shows that I think this pressure is still needed, because we are still left with around 96 of LGBT-free zones, and yeah, there is still a lot to do.
Okay, so 96 cities are left, 96 are left, and the pressure is needed. That's an important message that I will also take into the LSBD, because we have already written letters to those German cities that hold twin city partnerships with cities that have declared themselves as LGBT-free zones. But maybe that's something important to do again to write our German cities and tell them to put pressure again, and maybe also tell them that the pressure is needed, because if you don't knock at the door, as Jakub said, no one will ever open, and you need to knock as long till you get on their nerves, and they finally then open that bloody door. Well, anyway, listen, Jakub, I'd like to know, looking back at history, is there anything that we can learn from the history in order to change perception towards the LGBTI community in Poland, or in order to basically have a more direct dialogue with the Polish government? I don't know. I'm a bit intrigued to find out if history has any lessons that it can teach us.
Well, I'm not sure if there is any historical lesson to be learned from the Polish history itself. We've kind of unfortunately even take the pride of being particularly stubborn and not easily be told what to do. So maybe that's not the best example, but as a law historian, I know that law may be, and often is, a very successful tool of political change. And oftentimes introducing a legal regulation that may not have a full support of the community, of the society, by then applying that regulation, changes the views on social justice. There is this very nice medieval commentary on the digest, which explains that what certainly has been established as law with time passing becomes justice. And whenever and this is a text that I read with my students at my very first class every year, and I always ask them for examples. And what I would expect of them normally is to say emancipation of women. This is a very good example of how law had been a successful tool of change. Women's suffrage was not a forte of none of these communities or societies that introduced them back after the First World War. It was a minority that wanted that change. But then look where we are now. I just want to say that quite a few times my students have given me as an example a gay marriage as well, in Spain, for instance. In 2005, when Zapatero introduced same-sex marriage in Spain, I doubt whether the Spanish society had actually been so much supportive. Nowadays, excuse because this is something which we should not be using in that context, but it is so, it's normality. It's been accepted. Law has made this change. This law. So this is something we can really learn from the history of law. One thing that enlightened politicians and judges make the change for the society, and the society simply gets used to that because it sees that nothing wrong then happens. That's one good lesson. The bad lesson is nothing is given forever. Back in the 90s, in the early 2000s, when the first bills on same-sex partnership were proposed in Poland, we hoped everything was going the right way. We would have to wait, one bill, another bill, the third bill, it'll come. Presently, the situation is much worse. Look at Switzerland. Switzerland has got now a referendum that wants to block. Of course, they will probably lose that. But this is a very important warning. Behold, because nothing is given forever. It can always be reversed. Skillful populistic politicians can always take it back, what you've already won. So be aware and cherish what you have and help the others who don't have it yet. That's your duty.
Now, it's a good message. Now, we as an association are also in touch with the German-Polish Commerce Association chamber here in Berlin. And we are trying to talk to them in order to see what can we do together in order also to implement some sort of proceedings where we can basically get it from there and see how we can also help to make them understand what's going on with the LGBTI community there and what we expect from them, you know, and from our partners here in Germany who collaborate with the German-Polish Chamber. That's one thing that we are working on at the moment. We are also working with the drugstore Rossmann, who has a lot of drugstores in Poland. And we're also trying to talk to them about the LGBT-free zones and see what they can do in order to put pressure, because, you know, it's a very powerful company that is expanding all over. So that's basically also something that we as an association are trying to do in order, next to all the other things that we are doing, in order to basically support and help as much as we can. Now, one last thing that I would like to know is allies. How important are allies, and are you also thinking of some sort of project, some sort of system to get allies closer to our big aim of fighting homophobia, state homophobia and societal homophobia in Poland? Because we need more allies. We need those 50+% of the population that will vote for a more progressive government that doesn't attack our community. Milena.
Well, I can only repeat what Jakub has already said, and this is education, education, education. And of course, not only at school, but through all kinds of campaigns that Love Does Not Exclude Association run on several levels. And currently one of them is related to the situation and rights of rainbow families in Poland. And I'm absolutely not an expert on that. Like, I'm a lawyer, so I don't want to speak in details of general social change. But from my own observation and what I read and know, I guess that always these kind of campaigns are also more and more successful if people realize that LGBTI community, that rainbow families are all around them, that it's not a concept that is being brought from abroad, as our government likes to repeat, right? That this is a foreign ideology which is coming from Western countries, but that there are rainbow families living in Poland, same-sex couples raising children together, that they can be their colleagues from work or neighbors, and maybe they are afraid to come out, or maybe they have done it already. But making people realize all of that, it brings change, I guess. And this is for sure one of the angles that we want to take. And from more legal perspective, I think that this is also, again, raising awareness. And this is also what our project aims to do, that, of course, as we've said already several times, the main aim is to help people who need help. But on the other hand, speaking about it, like, and the events as this one or all the other events, we also raise awareness what's going on. And although it might seem sometimes for us that this is the topic that now absolutely every person in Poland must have heard of, I don't really think that is the case, that there are still people who don't really understand what discrimination is, or they don't understand what LGBTI community has to face, or what homophobia or transphobia means. So there is still a lot of work to be done there, and this is for sure something we still need to do.
I would also add that sometimes I encountered a situation where people who encounter discrimination think that it's normal for them to be treated like that. They have learned how to deal with it for so long, they don't know any other sort of situation, that for them there is, you know, fighting against it doesn't really come into their concept, because they've always lived in such an horrible, discriminatory, homophobic environment that they have managed somehow to live with it, which is tragic, and that's why we need to do this work, and why companies and associations like, for example, yours, need to do the work that they do, because it raises awareness and it tells people, no, you can do something about it. You can sue even the state if you have to, and we help you. Jakub, one last question to you. Do you have also any sort of support by your Polish celebrities? I mean, usually they are the big loudspeakers that really get into each and every living room. All these Instagram influencers, all these people that run up and down every TV channel. How is the situation there with getting and receiving support?
I mean, there is again this silver lining of the campaign of homophobia started roughly 2 years ago. A lot of celebrities, I mean, maybe not a lot, but some of them reacted to that, and I'm talking about influencers or Instagrammers or singers or pop singers, and they've caused quite a stir up among them fans, putting up pictures showing that and messages against homophobia. There is this very notable person, Ania Rubik, a fashion star, fashion model, and she's been constantly doing stuff. Now we have had a come out of a pop singer lately, already in quite advanced moment of his life, I would say. But I think it's all contributing to what Milena has said, that to people realize that LGBTQ people live among them, because maybe still some of them haven't met any. So for our little initiative, we haven't had, I mean, any big celebrity involved, but on our board of trustees or board of advisors, we have one late constitutional justice, and Professor Wyrzykowski, and then a leading feminist lawyer, Professor Monika Płatek, and they are celebrities in their own rights. So at least among these communities that we want to influence to raise awareness. So in that sense, yes, the third trustee is barrister Olga Ziegler, who is a successful lawyer with one of the huge companies, so that also raises awareness in that professional level. Again, allies are important, or educating allies are important, because I think discrimination is often a result of not realizing that we actually discriminate, because being in a privileged position, we don't realize that discrimination actually could exist. So showing more of those who are privileged to be on our side, inverted commas, because this is not our, their, it's one side. It's all about human rights. Actually, great, does a tremendous job to the case, to the cause.
Listen, tomorrow is going to be the International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia. What have you guys planned in Poland? Anything that you're going to do tomorrow?
I can start very quickly. There is an event organized by this informal LGBTQ sports club called Homo Commando. It's a pun, obviously, at Krakowskie Przedmieście, so in front of the University Gate at 5:00 p.m. Funnily enough, a lot of the pandemic restrictions have been lifted, but not the right to free assembly. So the assembly, at least officially, is going to be very small, but it's going to turn into an artistic event, and there is no limitations on artistic events. So we'll be there speaking about equal rights and commemorating especially the 7th and the 8th of August. As I say, this Polish Warsaw Stonewall of the last year, the detention of 40+ activists, the violating, breaching of human rights by the police, by the state's authority. Interestingly enough, a lot of the courts, in a lot of these cases, the courts have already reached the decision that the detentions were not justified, they were illegal, and therefore the people who had been detained, they are now seeking damages from the state. So again, this is a nice example of how important it is to have independent courts that would be on our side, that is the side of human rights.
Of course, yeah. Milena, how are you going to spend the day tomorrow? Working, and what else?
Yes, looking at the announcement of ILGA's Europe, a new rainbow map to see if Poland is still considered the most homophobic state in the EU. But besides that, LGBTI intergroup in the European Parliament is also organizing an interesting event online, where also Polish activists will be speaking and experts from European Parliament to discuss what can be still done on the EU level to support the community in the whole EU, in Poland, and to make come true this idea of LGBTI freedom zone that the European Parliament has introduced lately. So I can also encourage everyone to follow that tomorrow, although I'm not sure what time is it, but I'm sure you can find it on the website of the EP.
I'm going to have a talk on Friday with parliamentarians from the European Union. I will be speaking also with the intergroup, and I will be speaking with Mark Angel and with others also about Hungary and also about Poland. So the topic, as you see, is one that we are trying to take as serious as possible. And we're trying to also figure out more and more to ask what you need for. And I think that this event tonight has been a good opportunity for our viewers and also for us who work in associations to find out and hear from you guys what is needed. And we can try to provide as much help and support as we can. So one way is, and I won't stop repeating it, is to donate money towards your project. I know that, you guys have not met me for me to say it all the time, but it's important that I repeat it, because it's important that you guys get the financial support that you deserve, because I'm sure that many more cases will come your way. And that's at least what I wish for yourselves, and also for the success of your work, but also to all the members of our community who are in urgent need of legal support. And at the other hand, it's important to find out what we can do. So donating money, speaking to you guys, listening, and keeping in touch. And I would be very happy if we keep in touch, if we keep exchanging ideas and see what else we can all do together in order to improve the situation. And I'd like to thank you very much for your time and for your openness to talk to us about your project and about the projects and the cases that you're dealing with at the moment. Milena, thank you very much for everything, for all your work. You're a very great ally. Thank you for being such a wonderful ally in supporting our community. And Jakub, mein Freund, vielen Dank. Danke für alles. I know that you're missing your boyfriend a lot. Because of Corona, you're not meeting each other. Because of the COVID situation is a bit of a problem. So I really hope that you guys manage to see each other soon again. Und falls du mal wieder nach Berlin kommen solltest, lass es uns wissen. Dann organisieren wir ein kleines Fest in unserem Büro und treffen dich mal persönlich und lernen dich dann auch mal kennen. So.
Sehr, sehr gerne.
Yeah. To all of you watching from all around Germany and maybe even hopefully Europe and other places of the world, thank you very much for having spent the evening with us. This has been our talk about Law Does Not Exclude, this wonderful, beautiful project, strong project that will support our community in Poland on a legal basis. Thank you for having spent the evening with us. Enjoy your International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia tomorrow. It's an important day where we celebrate and where we also commemorate the situation that many of us face all around the world. Stay strong. Stay safe, and I hope to see you all soon again here on our Facebook page from the LSBD, the German and Lesbian Association in Germany. Have a lovely night. Goodbye.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Ciao, tschüss.
Bye, thank you.